Good evening. My name is Henry Jabbour, and I'm the director of the Cambridge Samaritans branch. I started my 3-year term as director in January of this year. Let me start by extending a very warm welcome to everyone who has joined us this evening. And before we start our exciting program that we've put together for you, just a few housekeeping points. A reminder that the event is being recorded, and we've also enabled automatic captioning for this event, so you should be able to follow along with captions if you would like. You should see a button for that on your screen. Please also put any questions you have in the questions and answers section. You can do this throughout the event, and we will have a question and answer session where we respond to some of your questions at the end. I should also mention that throughout this presentation, there will be a reference to suicide. So please look after yourself if this is triggering for you. This is our first event with the Open Cambridge Festival. The Open Cambridge Festival is a celebration of our community, our heritage, and our history. It highlights the stories of Cambridge, and it provides an inclusive platform to showcase extraordinary spaces, places, and people. It is designed to offer special access to places that are normally closed to the public. And with that in mind, what we wanted to do is to share with you what we at Cambridge Samaritans do for the local community and beyond. I want to start by stating what our vision is, what we are all about. Simply put, the Samaritan vision is that fewer people die by suicide. Some history for you. In 1935, Chad Vara conducted his first funeral as an assistant curate in Lincoln for a 13-year-old girl who had taken her own life. The young girl had feared she had a sexually transmitted disease and that she would die a slow, painful, and shameful death. In fact, the girl had started to menstruate. Vara vowed at her graveside to devote himself to helping other people to overcome the sort of isolation and ignorance that had caused the girl to kill herself. Almost 2 decades later, in November 1953, the Samaritans was founded by Chad Vara in a back room in London. It was initially known as 999 for the suicidal, and its aims was to provide support to people who are struggling with suicidal thoughts or experiencing emotional distress. It later became known as Samaritans after a newspaper article coined the phrase "telephone good Samaritan," drawing a parallel to the biblical story. We are a secular, non-political organization welcoming individuals of all backgrounds. Our listeners will never impose any personal attitudes or beliefs on people who contact us. And here are some Samaritan facts. We have more than 200 branches around the UK and Ireland, including ours in Cambridge, and we are proud that our branch was one of the early ones established back in 1962. There are around 23,000 Samaritan volunteers, 150 of them here in Cambridge. We are open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And our volunteers spent more than 900,000 hours answering calls for help last year, a call every 10 seconds. People in need can get in touch with us in one of several ways. It is free to call us on 116 123. You can also email us for emotional support. Our email address is joe@samaritans.org. You can also write to us at Free Post Samaritans Letters. And you can connect with us via chat online through our website. We also work with organizations like Network Rail to prevent suicides on the railways, and we work in schools, prisons, and hospitals to provide emotional support. There will be more about that later in the webinar. Our 23,000 volunteers nationally and approximately the 150 volunteers here in Cambridge are ordinary people from all walks of life who give their time freely. What binds us together is the strong will that we want to live in a world where fewer people die by suicide, and that if someone is having a difficult emotional time, they will always have someone to talk to. When callers get in touch, we listen, we do not judge, we are patient, and we do not make decisions for them. We hope that by talking to us, their thoughts become clearer and they will have a better idea what works best for them. They are the expert on their own life. Our opinions or advice are not important. We are careful when we use statistics because we are mindful that there's an individual behind every bit of data. But what we do matters, and it matters because suicide is the biggest killer of people under 35 and of men under 50, as well as being the leading cause of death for 10 to 19-year-olds. Every 90 minutes, someone in the UK or Ireland takes their own life. In the general population, males are 3 times more likely to take their own life than females. And we also know that suicide is not equal. People on the lowest income have a higher suicide rate than those who are better off financially. This year, for the first time, we've seen reliable data about the LGBTQ+ community. Compared with people identifying themselves as straight or heterosexual, the risk of suicide for people identifying as LGB+ was 2.2 times higher, and the risk of intentional self-harm was 2.5 times higher. For every suicide, it is estimated that 135 people knew the person who died. So every suicide has a profound impact on many people. And people who are bereaved by the death of a friend or a family member by suicide are 65% more likely to attempt suicide themselves than if the family member died from natural causes. That is why our work is very important. Talking helps, and what we do is provide a space for callers to talk in a space that is empathetic and non-judgmental. And finally, I want to leave you with one more fact. In our branch last year, we answered approximately 28,000 calls. Our branch is fully run by volunteers. We do not have any paid staff, and we do not have any government grants. All the money needed for keeping our branch open is generated by an in-house team dedicated to fundraising for our branch. And now I would like to introduce Matthew, who will be talking to you about the history of our branch in Cambridge. Matthew has been a volunteer in the branch for over 35 years, so he is best placed to talk to you about our branch and its history.
Thank you, Henry. There's been a Samaritans branch in Cambridge for more than 60 years now. It all started in 1962, almost a decade after Chad Vara took that first call, when a group of individuals concerned at the local suicide rate got together to form a local branch. Something of the flavour of the Cambridge Samaritans in those days may be gathered from the membership of that group, which included Air Vice Marshal Sir Charles Steele and Hugh Montefiore, who later became Bishop of Birmingham. Lectures were held in Emmanuel College to, as it was described, inform and equip volunteers, and a first director, the Vicar of Little St Mary's, was appointed. Initially, the branch ran independently of the National Samaritans, but after some forceful internal debate, it was decided in September 1963 to affiliate and become a registered charity. Some might say, though, that a certain Cambridge way of doing things persists even to this day. Thanks to the assistance of the owners of the University Arms Hotel, the branch gained use of a rather dingy basement at 35 Regent Terrace that was spruced up by a local boys' club, and on the 4th of June 1962, the branch officially opened. Here is what 35 Regent Terrace looks like today, with the basement window still visible. The volunteers' experience in those early days seems to have been rather different to today. Caller numbers in person and by phone were low, just 312 in the whole first year. But there were many more volunteers, reportedly over 200. The branch was open from 9 a.m. to midnight, supported by a daily supervisor, who we might now call a leader, and night calls were answered from a volunteer's home. As almost all callers were from the Cambridge area, the branch also had so-called emergency volunteers, or EVs, who would go out to visit callers, and on occasion, callers would be given temporary accommodation in volunteers' own homes. By the early 1970s, the branch was able to achieve 24-hour opening, with volunteers sleeping in the rooms, as they were called. The basement premises were not really suitable for this, however, and the branch was fortunate to get a gift of the princely sum of £10,000, with which they were able to buy 1 Parker Street on the other side of Parker's Piece. The 2-storey house provided kitchen and interview rooms on the ground floor, with the operations room, where calls were answered, an office and a bedroom on the 1st floor. Shortly after the move, Peggy Hadrill became the first female branch director, and also the first director, it seems, who was not a religious minister. During the whole time at Parker Street, the branch had a local phone number, 01223 364455, so almost all callers were from the Cambridge area, as this was cheaper than calling another branch on the national number. Although this did not stop a few callers using directory inquiries to shop around to find a branch that they considered better suited to their needs. Over a period of time, many of these callers would regularly visit or call the branch, so in addition to the A3 handwritten log sheet, a brief note would be made on a file card to keep track of new developments in their story. These were kept in a cabinet in the ops room in a way that would certainly not pass muster in our GDPR-conscious age. As the volume of calls increased from 8,000 per annum when the branch first moved to Parker Street to 30,000 in 1990, a number of long-standing practices were phased out, such as the use of emergency volunteers, renamed the Flying Squad, and of long-term befriending, in which a caller would meet regularly with 2 Samaritan volunteers outside the branch. With the accessibility and conditions of the Parker Street house becoming increasingly problematic, by the late 1980s, the branch was looking to move again, and thanks to fundraising and a substantial legacy, was able to purchase and renovate 4 Emmanuel Road for £400,000. The new premises provided level access to the interview rooms, operations room and kitchen, and had the bonus of a large hall at the rear that could be used for meetings and training. With night duties running from 11 p.m. to 8:45 a.m, the premises also had 2 bedrooms from which volunteers could take calls, but could also catch some sleep if there was a lull in the still local calls. With the introduction of the national number in 2015, however, no such respite was possible, and night duties were reduced to their current 4 hours. The branch hall really came into its own during the COVID pandemic, as its size allowed the branch to continue operations with social distancing maintained. With further major refurbishment in 2021, the branch layout was changed to put the ops room upstairs, now with a stair lift for accessibility, and with a major upgrade to the IT facilities, through which the service now almost entirely operates. The next section of the presentation gives you a sense of our present setup.
Welcome to Cambridge Samaritans. We are located at 4 Emmanuel Street, only a few minutes walk from Cambridge Central bus station. Our branch was established in 1962, making it one of the first branches to be founded in the UK. Our facilities have been recently refurbished. We have several meeting rooms, and this large one is also used to train our new volunteers. Our telephone operations room has several listening stations. Our volunteers are highly trained to listen and offer emotional support to callers. We answer calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and 365 days a year.
We're now going to show a short video showing you what happens when you actually call Samaritans, followed by a section on our values and training with Ruth.
When you ring Samaritans, we'll aim to pick up as quickly as possible. There is no rush, there's no pressure to start a conversation. It's just at your own pace whenever you're ready.
And sometimes we might gently prompt you with some questions, like tell me more, tell me what's been happening in your day.
We're just there to listen and to help you talk about whatever it is that's troubling you, what's on your mind at the moment.
We do get calls from people who are feeling suicidal, but you can call about anything that you want to talk about. All the calls we get are important.
If you need some emotional support, if you just want to talk about something that's happened, or you just feel that you want to hear a voice and feel less alone, call us.
And if now's not the right time, it's okay to just end the call. We'll understand.
The call is for you, just to go as you want it to go.
I'm Ruth, and I'm part of the training team at Cambridge Samaritans. We are all volunteers, and most of us are also what we call a listening volunteer, those who talk to callers in crisis or despair. Exploring feelings alleviates distress and helps people to reach a better understanding of their situation and the options open to them. Giving people time, undivided attention, and empathy meets a fundamental emotional need and reduces distress and despair. How is listening as a Samaritan different to listening as a friend, a colleague, or family member? There are similarities, but there are also differences. And these are the things that make Samaritans special. Our starting point is the Samaritans' core values. Listening. We know that listening to what someone is thinking and feeling really helps. It gives people the chance to get things clear in their own mind. They can think about what choices they would like to make, what they would like to change, and how they might be able to do this. Confidentiality. Confidentiality is central to our work. What a caller shares with us remains confidential between the caller and Samaritans. When people feel that they are safe, they are more likely to be honest with us about their thoughts and feelings. That confidential relationship is very important to us. Non-judgmental. We do not form an opinion about someone because of something they have done or something that has happened to them. We want people to be able to talk to us without fear of prejudice or fear of not being accepted. People making their own decisions wherever possible. We believe that people have the right to find their own answers, and we believe that telling people what to do takes responsibility away from them. Human contact. We give people our time, undivided attention, and empathy. All Samaritans volunteers are unique, and all Samaritans calls are unique. But it is important that we have consistency in our service. A key tool that we use is called the listening wheel. The listening wheel is used by everyone from trainees to the most experienced listening volunteers. As part of our conversation with a caller, we will use the various components: reacting, open questions, summarising, reflecting, clarifying, short words of encouragement, silence. I'd like to focus on two aspects of the listening wheel. Firstly, open questions. Open questions are useful for encouraging someone to explore thoughts and feelings. We often start our questions with words such as what, when, where, and how. And we try to avoid using why, because that can sound accusatory or judgmental, as if asking the person to justify what they've said or done. And by keeping questions open, for example, how long have you had these thoughts? The caller can respond in multiple ways. Secondly, at the heart of the listening wheel is silence. Silence can be very powerful if it is used in the right way. And it can feel strange at first because it is not something we often use in our day-to-day conversations. But periods of silence can help keep things steady and also give everyone time to think and reflect. One of the most impactful experiences of being a Samaritan can come from establishing a connection and simply sitting in silence alongside another human being. And how do we get new volunteers to the point where they are ready to talk to people at some of the most significant and pivotal moments of their lives? At Cambridge, our training is delivered in training groups through a mixture of online and face-to-face sessions in the branch, with additional digital learning modules. New volunteers begin with what we call core development training. And during this period of training, we explore the fundamentals of what being a Samaritans listening volunteer means. We also do role plays to develop technique and confidence at taking calls. After that, each trainee will be assigned a mentor. A mentor is an experienced volunteer who will be there to support a new Samaritan throughout their training journey and often much beyond. At this point, the new volunteers start to take calls and begin what we call embedding development training. Overall, it takes about 9 months for a volunteer to progress through the training phase to becoming a full and independent listening volunteer in the branch. Trainees are supported throughout by their training cohort, trainers, and mentors. And they also have access to extensive support within the branch, and that's there for all volunteers. We also have what we call continuous development training, and we all undertake training on an annual basis to ensure that our skills remain sharp and up to date. Samaritans training is incredibly thorough and thought-provoking. Every time we deliver training, new questions are asked and new perspectives arise. There is a structure and a framework to training, but we are not teaching trainees to follow a script. Volunteers each use their unique forms of compassion, warmth, and empathy to connect with people who use our services. I'd now like to introduce Mark, who will talk about his volunteering experiences at Cambridge branch.
Thank you, Ruth. And hello, everybody. I'm Mark, and I'm going to talk today about my personal volunteering experience, covering 3 areas: applying, training, and then listening. I applied to be a Samaritans volunteer about 4 years ago. Why? Each volunteer will have their own very personal reasons for wanting to do this. The role is a long-term commitment, which I personally find rewarding, but it can also be hard at times. So for me, being clear about my personal why has been helpful throughout my time as a volunteer. The application process itself helps to focus the mind. As part of the application process, you're asked to reflect on these 5 stop and think statements. And these statements are also covered in some depth at the subsequent interview. 1, I will hear difficult things. 2, I can't tell the caller what to do. The principle of self-determination is key. 3, I may have to listen to somebody taking their own life. This one really made me stop and think. For me, it underlines just how serious and important our role is. It's very rare and very, very few calls end this way. 4, I can listen without judgment. And then finally, number 5, I can cope with feeling deeply uncomfortable. This one's really important because in someone's hardest moments, you really need to be able to put your own discomfort aside to be totally focused on the feelings of the caller. And also, as Samaritans, we will not try to avoid the pain. We will steer into it. So the application process isn't just admin, it's the first step in really understanding what the role involves. Moving on to training. The training program that Ruth outlined is truly excellent. I have a background in professional services, and over the last 30 years, I've done a lot of training. This is some of the best training I've ever done. I think of it as a kind of mutual assurance of readiness, a way for both you personally and the Samaritans to know you're prepared for the role. I went into training not knowing whether I could do the role. What if I don't know what to say? What if I say the wrong thing? How will it affect me? Will I be able to leave it all behind after the shift? But as Ruth covered, the nature of the training reflects the importance of what we do. It takes about 220 hours of training to become a full listening volunteer. Not everyone gets through the training, but at the end of it, you come out feeling ready. You know you've been prepared for the listening that lies ahead. Listening. So I've now been a listening volunteer for about 3 years. The listening experience can be challenging at times. You connect with people who are often in moments of deep distress. You will be exposed to situations that you might otherwise never encounter in your everyday life. But it's also uplifting. You will experience the strength of the human spirit, resilience, insights, and sometimes even humor in moments of great adversity. And for me, when I finish a shift, it feels good to know that I've been there for someone in their moment of need. I've learned a lot as a volunteer, but perhaps 3 things stand out. As Ruth outlined in some of our values, the power of active listening, really listening, helping people to explore their own situation and their possible paths forward. Second, the value of human connection. That simple act of just being there for the person really helps. And third, perspective. Listening to others from all walks of life in different situations really broadened my own perspective on the world. And all of this brings us back to the caller. The caller is the reason we are all here. The caller's reality is the focus. I have found that when you're on a call in a critical situation, it is a focus like no other. At that moment, it is just you and the caller. And at that moment, nothing else in the world is more important. So let's hear from a caller. What follows is Rebecca's story.
Rebecca's film discusses suicide, including an attempt. It was filmed by the sea, her place of sanctuary.
I had become very good at hiding behind words. hiding in plain sight, being around people all the time and finding the right ways to say that I wasn't 100% but I was probably fine. What led up to me calling Samaritans was a suicide attempt. I'd had months of suicidal thoughts. I think it's really hard to articulate unless you've been in that place just how difficult that is. It's a constant stream, at least that was my experience. It was a constant stream of negative thinking, and I wish I'd made the call even before then. And that's why I'm sitting here sharing my story, because I don't want people to call after they've made an attempt. So even though I'd made the call, I still didn't really know how I was going to say what I needed to say. For some people, especially if you really are in the darkest point, it's pretty near impossible to start that conversation and ask for help. And then as I couldn't really articulate it, they said, "Are you feeling suicidal?" And that allowed me to say, yes, I have tried to take my own life this evening. The volunteer that asked me that question opened the gates for me to start sharing. I was able to talk about really taboo, difficult, painful thoughts with zero judgment. And only when I'd got all of that emotion out and they had established that I was in a safe place were we then to talk about what to do next. Because once I'd said all of that stuff, I calmed down. And I had never done that before. So that was really new to me, that actually saying all of the painful thoughts, all of the ideation that I had to another human being actually calmed me down. In that moment, a friend of mine who does shift work had sent me some text messages, and I remember saying that to the person on the phone, and they said, "Oh, is that someone that you could reach out to?" It just mattered that I told someone about what I was going through, so that I could stay safe for that day. I can't remember the exact wording, but I said, "I've had a really bad night. I've tried to die." The Samaritans volunteer helped me get to those words. And the reason I said it so bluntly is because any other form of "I'm struggling, I'm finding life really difficult, etc., in the past has been met with empathy, but my mind manipulated that into meaning, okay, that was enough, you didn't need to open up more. They don't want to hear more because they just responded. That friend started replying to me and said, to pack my bags and come over to their house. And then when I was with that person and I'd got to a safe place, I remember the Samaritans volunteer had encouraged me to tell my family. When I called my family member, I was crying and they said, "Oh, what's happened? Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm with my friend because I tried to die." That ownership of what had happened helped start my recovery, helped other people in my life realise what was going on with me. Quite quickly afterwards, I wanted to live again. I've done so many things in the last 2.5 years that have validated to me that life is worth living. I want people to be unafraid to ask their loved ones, "Are you going to hurt yourself? Are you going to try and die? Have you had suicidal thoughts?" I want people to feel empowered to do that, because the worst thing that's going to happen is someone's going to go, "Oh God, no, not me. I can't believe you thought that. I'm just having a bad day." But at least you asked, because one day someone might respond back and say yes, and you could be the person that helps save their life.
Whatever you're facing, we're here to listen. Call free day or night on 116 123.
Following that really powerful video, we're going to talk a bit about the outreach which helps us go out to those communities that we may not reach otherwise, with Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary and I'm part of the outreach team at Cambridge Samaritans. And outreach is important to our mission as Samaritans. It's about being present in our community, raising awareness of the support Samaritans offers, promoting emotional well-being and helping people feel heard and valued. Whether this is through events, talks or direct emotional support, outreach helps us to connect with those who might never contact us through the traditional channels. Whilst you've heard, and you will hear again shortly, many people reach out via phone, email or chat. But we also know that there are others out there, especially those in high-risk groups, who may not. And our challenge as the outreach team is to find meaningful ways to connect with these individuals and offer support wherever they are. Certain groups face significantly higher risks of suicide and emotional distress, and these are what we call the high-risk groups. Henry referred to some of these earlier, but I'm going to repeat it because it's important. Men account for 75% of suicides. Those in manual or low-paid jobs, especially construction, are 3 times more at risk. Unemployed men are 2.5 times more likely to die by suicide than those in work. And people bereaved by suicide are 65% more likely to attempt suicide than those bereaved by natural causes. Another high-risk group is the LGBTQ+ individuals. They face a 2.2 times higher suicide risk and are 2.5 times more likely to self-harm than those who identify as straight or heterosexual. And there are other high-risk groups, veterans, prisoners and students, especially new students. They often experience acute emotional distress, particularly at the start of the academic year. So what does outreach involve? It takes many forms, including providing emotional support in settings such as homeless shelters, hospitals and football stadiums. At Samaritans in Cambridge, we've previously had volunteers at games at Cambridge United, for instance. Samaritans do post-incident support following deaths by suicide on the railways, in schools or in the community. We run awareness events like Brew Monday, where we hand out tea bags at stations to encourage people to have conversations over a cup of tea. There's another campaign called Small Talk Saves Lives, which encourages people to notice and engage with those people who might be struggling. We take part in community events such as Pride, local fairs and major festivals. In Cambridge this year, we've taken part in the local Pride event, in Triplo Daffodil Festival, who gave us a really generous financial donation from the event, and recently at the Cambridge Wellness Festival, which is an annual event held at the biomedical campus in September. We do talks and presentations to local companies, organisations and community groups. We recently ran sessions for security and admin staff at one of our shopping centres who border a multi-storey car park where there have been a number of deaths by suicide. And we participate with the fundraising team in fundraising events. We see outreach as distinct from fundraising, but often the two go together. But there are challenges around outreach. We're reviewing our outreach strategy locally, and it's important that we're aligned with a national strategy and the direction of travel of Samaritans as a whole. One of our main challenges is the availability of our volunteers to carry out this work. As you will hear and have heard, as a branch we cover many areas, and it's important that our keenness to provide outreach doesn't outstrip our ability to deliver the quality of service which is important to our community, particularly in respect of taking on regular and ongoing commitments. And that might sound like a lack of ambition, but it isn't. We are ambitious, but we need to reflect the capacity too. But we will always challenge ourselves as to how we can do more and better. And having said all that, we're always looking to connect with individuals, groups and organisations who share our commitment to emotional well-being. If you'd like to host a talk, collaborate on an event, or learn more about our work, we'd love to hear from you. And now I'm going to pass on to Anne, who's going to talk to you about prisons and the listener scheme. Thank you.
Statistics have shown that prisoners are 6 times more likely to die by suicide than the public, and for this main reason, Samaritans work very closely with HMN Prisons Probation Service, and to reduce this disturbing figure in line with our vision that fewer people die by suicide. The Samaritans have been doing so for over 30 years when the first listener scheme was introduced at HM Prison Swansea in 1991. Now there are listeners in almost every prison in the UK and in Ireland too. In conjunction with the Ware and Hitchin branch, we at Cambridge run a listener scheme at HM Prison Littlehay near Huntingdon. The prison support team currently consists of 11 Samaritans. I've been a member of this team for 16 years and have found it an amazing experience, and has helped me to understand the calls that I take from prisoners during my own duty as a listening Samaritan. So let me tell you what we do as members of the prison support team. Littlehay Prison has about 1,500 residents and is a Category C establishment. This means that prisoners can work as gardeners, which are spectacular and they have won awards, or in workshops, learning a skill or taking the opportunity to improve their education. So these prisoners are not locked up for 23 hours a day, as prisoners are in Category A or Category B establishments. Although we in Samaritans are a listening service, within the organisation, the team listener is normally associated with the prisons. To become a listener, prisoners are invited to fill in an application form which will go through their security system to see if they are eligible to become a listener. The prison support team will then hold a selection and interview process where we usually select about 15 listener candidates and who have applied, and they will go on to be trained. The prisoner support team will then train those prisoners to become listeners, and who will subsequently go out to calls requested by other prisoners within Littlehay. The training is held over 4 consecutive Saturdays and is very similar to the training given to Samaritans, with an emphasis on confidentiality. A listener has a very important role within the prison system. They become part of a very respected team, and it is essential that they can work closely with their fellow listeners. Following training, a new listener will be paired up with an existing listener who becomes their mentor and will go out on calls with them. Calls from prisoners are held in either 1 or 2 listening suites located in different wings. These are glorified cells which will have 3 chairs in. If a prisoner needs the support of a listener, they will press the bell in their cell, and they would be escorted by a prison officer to one of the listening suites, where 2 listeners, who also have been escorted, would be waiting for the caller. The prison officers then return to other duties, and the caller can then be assured of a confidential time with the listeners where they would be able to talk through the caller's emotional problems. All listeners are expected to attend a weekly Friday meeting with 2 members of the prison support team who will listen to the downloads of all the calls they have taken during the week. This meeting is a reassurance that the listeners have dealt adequately with the calls, and if necessary, can be offered advice from the prison support team. A member of the prison support team will be asked by the prison staff to attend a safer custody meeting along with the listener coordinator, and these meetings are held approximately once every 2 months and give us an opportunity to bring up any problems or difficulties we have encountered. We have trained some amazing listeners over the many years we have been at Littlehay. On release, they often want to continue listening, and they are now able to join the Samaritans either as listening volunteers or support volunteers. They take great pride in the work that they do within the prison. They're easily recognisable as they wear green polo shirts with a listener logo printed on them. This can be challenging work, both from the prison estate and managing the listeners. Sometimes it's difficult for prison officers to understand our confidentiality policy, and the reasons must be explained to them. Prisoners are by nature frightened of trusting anyone, so it's very important that confidentiality is always adhered to. However, there is no doubt that a successful listening team is a huge asset to a prison, as it helps provide emotional support to the very vulnerable. I would like to end by sharing some comments that some of the listeners have left with us over the years. First of all, words listeners will hear from a caller: lost, alone, abandoned, scared, frightened, bullied, worthless, useless, rubbish. I want to end my life. I can't cope. So one listener writes, So what's it like to be a listener? For me, it fills me with overwhelming sense of pride at being part of a team. Pride in the fact that someone wants to share their feelings and emotions with me. Another writes, during the call, we can see stress and distress slowly fade away. To be able to see the caller gradually relax in a chair feels like an accomplishment. Listeners and Samaritans help to make prison survivable. And a third, I feel honoured to be there for someone who just needs to get something off their mind, whatever it is. This is by far the best part of my prison experience and will stay with me forever. And now I would like to introduce Afisa, who will talk about the impact of our work, caller outcome, partnerships and campaigns.
Thank you, Anne. Now my bit is about trying to show you the impact of our work. Does Samaritans really make a difference? Are there fewer lives lost to suicide and more people in crisis supported because of our work? We'd like to believe the answer is yes. Now, our work in reducing suicide is clustered in three main areas: by offering emotional support, mainly through our helpline, through partnership with others, and through our campaigns that influence policy and behaviours. Next slide, please. First, the helpline. This is the backbone of our service. We answer a call every 10 seconds, 3.3 million calls in 2023. Cambridge Samaritans take about 28,000 calls every year. So how does that translate? Is the caller helped? A caller outcome study, can we have the next slide, please? Showed a significant reduction in distress by the end of the call. And even 7 days later, 3/4 of our callers still felt better. Callers felt speaking to Samaritans really helped them manage their own distress, suicidal thoughts or feelings. And I think this shows the effectiveness and the power of what we do, that simply listening without judgment or pressure can truly help someone. Secondly, our partnerships. Take our long-standing work with Network Rail. Since 2020, 31,000 rail staff have been trained by Samaritans to recognize signs of distress and offer help in those crucial moments. As a result, life-saving interventions have doubled, with more than 2,200 people helped last year. Now that's 2,200 lives given another chance. Third, our campaigns. Our media guidelines have transformed how suicide is reported. We also campaigned for Suicide Safer Internet. Last year, new protections for young people were written into the Online Safety Act. So we can see that the impact of Samaritans isn't only in the many, many calls answered, it's also in the greater awareness, safer communities, and lives saved in the critical moments of an ordinary day. Now here I want to share the words of one of our struggling callers from the outcome study. I'm looking for that lifeline, that string at the end of the balloon, something to keep me getting through the next hour. The person, they may be talking to me. I'm listening to their voice. I'm remembering that I'm still alive. So I'm really trying to get back in my body. And the person helps me do that. Now, those are the sorts of words that keeps us here and keeps us wanting to do the work. But we can't do this without you. We need your help. We need your help to help others. Now, our branch raises all its own funds, and we are 100% powered by our volunteers. These are some of the useful price points. £10 for a call, 150 would fund us for a day. So how can you support us as individuals? Runs, thinking about us in your will is quite an important source of funding for us. Cake sales, they all help. If you're an event organizer, please think about sending something our way from your festivals, annual dinners, or church collections. If you're a company, encourage employer fundraising, match funding, or make us your charity of the year. But what is most valuable for us is a commitment to regular giving that would really give us the security and the certainty to help us plan for the future. Thank you. Now, before our question and answer session, we'd like to play you another short film entitled The Call. I think it reminds us again that Samaritans is here to listen.
It's Dad. Just checking in. I haven't heard from you in a while. Will you call me? Bye, love. Jim. Making sure you're all right. Do you have someone else you can talk to?
Samaritans, can I help you?
Hi.
Take as long as you need.
Thanks.
How are you doing?
I don't really know.
I'm here to listen.
Thank you.
At Samaritans, we're here for you. Whoever you are, whatever you're going through, we're here to listen.
With that, that ends the formal part of our presentation, but we'd like to open the floor up to your questions. You should be able to see the question and answer button somewhere on your screen right now, and you should be able to see all of us on your screen. As you've seen throughout the presentation, there are lots of people who work in different areas of the branch who are here for you today, so you can direct questions to a particular person or just throw it out there and we'll answer in the best way that we can. We've got one question so far, which is about the support we give, but also how some calls might go unanswered because of the pressure in the service. So it reads, I'm grateful for the support I have received from the Samaritans since moving to Cambridge in 2012. However, I have noticed recently that my calls have occasionally gone unanswered. Is there too much demand? I realize that's a difficult question. Important. Henry, would you? Sorry to put you on the spot. Would you like to take that? Yeah, go for it. So everyone can see you. You could just speak. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't figure out to unmute myself. Absolutely. I mean, we are aware that there are a lot of calls that go unanswered because they go on a queue. You know, our service is under pressure certain times of the day, especially during the night hours, and we're constantly working sort of around the clock to sort of reduce the wait time and make sure that all calls are answered. And the way we do that is obviously by, you know, sort of constantly training new people, recruitment, training in order to sort of and have more listening stations, you know, sort of in the ops room so that more and more calls are answered. We're sorry that you've had that experience. We are aware of it, but just to reassure you that we're constantly trying to improve the answer rate of our calls.
Thanks, Henry. The questions are starting to flow in now. So thank you for opening the floodgates, Philip. That was really great. The next question is, I guess I'll direct to training about how we train our volunteers in responding to calls. Please could you let me know how long you stay on the phone to each person?
Do you want me to answer that?
Sure.
I mean, each call is unique. We stay with the caller for as long as they need, especially if they are in emotional distress. We don't put a time limit on calls. You know, we are there for the caller, so we're really guided by the caller. But generally, I would say an average call would be between 30 and 45 minutes. But there have been times when I've been on a call for about an hour and a half. So we don't rush callers. We stay with them. We listen to them. We support them emotionally until the call reaches its natural conclusion.
Yeah, and although I think most people who'd be worried about calling us might be worried about how long they take. If you also just want a short call, that's your prerogative. You don't have to stay on the phone for 20, 30 minutes if you don't want to. If you just want to get stuff off your chest and that you're in distress for a little while, but then talking through it helps, that's completely okay. So there's no one time limit. We're not trained with a specific number in mind. So the next question that I'll take, I'll direct to Ruth. Who delivers the training for the already fully trained volunteers?
Yeah, so we there's a director, a deputy director of continuous development. So that tends to be the person who delivers the training, but they can bring in all sorts of support. They have guest speakers coming in, and so it really depends on the sort of the focus of that training at that time. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you very much. Another one, how much time is required from each listener per week or month if they did want to volunteer? I suppose
I'm happy to answer that.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
I mean, normally on average, I think it's about, one shift a week, per volunteer, but on average, we say about 44 shifts a year. So it's not like every, week of the year. And volunteers have, the flexibility of deciding, when they want to volunteer during that week. We sort of have a flexible rota system where people sign up for the shift that they can do, over a 24-hour period. On average, it's about one a week.
And could we say
it tends to be about 4 hours long, roughly?
Yeah, between three.
It's just about 3 to 4 hours at Cambridge branch. That varies between branches. Okay. How do you proceed when? So this is about people who may call us but not be in the best state of mind and might what we would call sort of misuse the service a bit. So how do you proceed when a caller becomes personally aggressive, rude, and even obscene, crude? I think, is it okay if I try and answer that? Just because I've taken the question. When we talk about being non-judgmental, that applies to all of our callers. So of course we have a service that's well defined. There's a service we provide. If someone is misusing that and being abusive, that's not something we'll accept. But at no point will we get angry or upset. We'll maintain boundaries. And for people who are upset, a lot of the times we know that when you're in a moment of real distress, you might be feeling very angry. And if you are expressing that anger, we're not going to judge you for it. We're going to listen. And the line is, if you're abusive towards us, obviously that's different to if you're just feeling like something really wrong has happened to you or you need to vent. That distress through one of the videos talked about how just talking through the pain was what really helped. So at no point are we going to get upset. We maintain boundaries, but we're never judgmental because we know that people who call us are going through those really difficult emotions, and they might want to express that over the phone. Hopefully that answers the question. Do Samaritans get calls from refugees or refugee camps? Again, I suppose we don't know. Because our service is anonymous, we don't see the name or phone number who's calling us from where. We get calls from people in distress and they talk to us about what's going on for them, what they're feeling. So maybe we do, maybe we don't. As a listening volunteer, it certainly is not something we know, and it doesn't change how we listen. So I wonder if there's anything that someone else might want to add to that.
All that I want to add is that we are aware that it is a vulnerable sort of target group, in a way. They are vulnerable to suicidal feelings. So in essence, we would like to put out the message that we are open to those individuals to call us, for support.
So should we talk about extending services? If resources allowed, are there additional services that we would love to provide? I realize we're running out of time soon as well, so we'll take this as the last question.
I can answer that question very quickly. Obviously, more. I mean, that links to what Mary was saying, is that there's more and more that we can do. But sometimes resources and volunteers and volunteer times are really quite limited. From my perspective as a new director, I think the one thing that I would like to be able to do more is to reach out to more vulnerable community, to more vulnerable groups within our community, to do more outreach, to support those, communities and see how we can help, sort of alleviate some of the emotional distress. So definitely.
And I think that brings us to time. Thank you for all of your questions. I'll leave it to Henry to wrap up for us.
So I just want to conclude this webinar by saying a massive thank you on behalf of myself and all of the speakers to everyone for joining us this evening. I do hope that you found it informative. You have your own reasons for joining us this evening. Maybe you're interested in learning more about what we do, or maybe you're interested in volunteering for us, or maybe you've called us in the past, or you are struggling emotionally right now and you wanted to learn more about what we do. We are here for you, whatever your reasons may be. So do get in touch with us if it is helpful for you to do so. And with that, I wish you all a very good evening.